And what you'll see from Tuchel is a much higher pressing game. I don't often go into an international break excited. It's exciting because we hopefully will see something new from England.
The international break is upon us and Thomas Tuchel takes charge of the Three Lions for the very first time. I'm Qualifiers, taking interim charge of Tactics Exposed Team Talk, and I'm here with the Sun Sports ever-present tactics guru, Dean Scoggins. Dino, the Thomas Tuchel regime begins.
The Kwaku regime begins.
Oh, stop it.
And Will's lent you a shacket.
I know. I'm taking his fashion advice. We're expecting big things from Thomas Tuchel?
Oh, we absolutely are. I don't often go into an international break excited, and it's exciting because we hopefully will see something new from England. You know, we've got excited with Gareth Southgate tournaments before because of the players that we've got, but I think Thomas Tuchel's going to bring something tactically new to England, which is very exciting.
And hopefully bring that winning formula that England desperately need. I'm a Chelsea fan. I know Thomas Tuchel firsthand.
He brings trophies.
He does bring trophies. I think the biggest question people are asking is how he will set up. So I'm going to ask the tactics guru himself. How will Thomas Tuchel set up? Will it be three at the back or will it be four at the back?
Well, the first thing is you're first spot on to ask the question about three at the back. I think the automatic response from most people is Tuchel's a three at the back man. He's not just a three at the back man. It's not down to just a formation with Tuchel. It's about the players that he has available. So at Dortmund, four at the back and an adaptive setup in attack, but four at the back. At PSG, started with a three at the back, moved to a four at the back, went to a three at the back again. He tried to evolve a team around Neymar, so there was another example of what he might do with England as well, with some of our stars. And then at Chelsea, as you know, wing-backs, three at the back, won the Champions League with it, but do England have the wing-backs to do that? And then at Bayern, back to four at the back again. So it's going to be difficult to predict what Thomas Tuchel might do. So what I'll do is try and show some of the options for him, okay? The first one we need to look at is defensively, there's some big question marks. No Stones in this squad, no Maguire in this squad, and no real natural left-back, if you like. Mars Lewis-Skelly's been outstanding for Arsenal. So what we might see is Kyle Walker play in the right-back position and Mars Lewis-Skelly play in the left-back position, which will see an inverted full-back, as we see a lot in the Premier League. So a full-back go into midfield and a back three get created with maybe Walker, Konza and Gahey as an example. Maybe even Dan Burn. Could be exciting, Dan Burn. Or the other way, you could see Dan Burn as the left back and then Reece James as the right back instead of Kyle Walker. And as you well know, Reece James very adaptable. He could be the one who inverts into that midfield position and Burn becomes a more natural back three, okay? But the key for Tuchel is getting the best out of his attacking players. So as you go through the team, there are some other big question marks. Does Bellingham play as the 10? Or does Foden play as the 10 and Bellingham play as an 8 with Declan Rice? But what we then end up is also no Saka.
Yes.
So do we look at a Jarrod Bowen in this position out here, hugging a touchline, and Marcus Rashford or Anthony Gordon on the other side? So what Tuchel is into is rotations of players and getting the best out of the players he has available. So we might see a three at the back formation on Friday night, and then we might see a four at the back formation on Monday night.
What you explained here is a very fluid system, and I think the perception of Thomas Tuchel from British football fans, because of what he did at Chelsea, is that he's pretty pragmatic with that three at the back system, but you believe going forward with England he's going to be pretty fluid and adaptable based on the players he's got available?
Yeah, I think so, because when at Chelsea he had Kante and Jorginho sitting in front of a back three, and he had natural wing backs in Alonso, Chilwell, Reece James, you know, so it was the players he had lent itself to that formation. And then, of course, he used Timo Werner and Mason Mount very cleverly in those number 10s positions to play off Kai Havertz, and the Champions League final being that brilliant goal that was straight off the training ground that I know you'll remember well. Or maybe you don't remember it too well, depending on how much you'd had to drink.
I had a sore head the day after, for
absolutely.
sure.
But yeah, I'm really looking forward to see what he does with the attacking players, because when we talked about it under Gareth Southgate, it was very much this is Southgate's system, and then we're going to pick players in those positions, rather than how can we adapt. So if he starts with, let's say, Bowen on one side and Rashford on the other, what he'll be looking for is those two to provide the width, and then getting a number 10 in there and another attacking midfielder in there. So you could end up with Declan Rice and Miles Lewis-Skelly, let's say, in that position, because I talk about it a lot, this 3-2-5 formation, the attacking setup that managers like a lot. Obviously Harry Kane. And then all of a sudden, if England have 5 attackers in this area, the options become available. And then you'll see interchanges where wingers come off and into those attacking positions to play off Kane. Both sides as well. You might see Rashford come in off this line and Bellingham or Foden drift over into that position there. So interchanges in attacking positions, really, really important for Tuchel.
One of the biggest criticisms levelled at Gareth Southgate was the fact that the football was a little bit boring, a little bit too pragmatic. Are you expecting to see more exciting football from Thomas Tuchel?
I really am. And Thomas Tuchel, they outscored Bayern when he was at Dortmund. PSG scored goals for fun. Okay, Mbappe, Neymar, you might suggest. Obviously, Chelsea was a little bit different, as you alluded to. But again, the players he had available. So with England, there's no excuse, is there? The players are there to score loads of goals. You know, the best goal-scoring number 9 in Europe. You know, the best number 8 in Europe, I would say, in Jude Bellingham. And, you know, can he get more out of Phil Foden in an England shirt? Obviously, no Cole Palmer in this squad, but you can imagine Cole Palmer in that front 5 as well. You know, absolutely fantastic. And what you'll see from Tuchel is a much higher pressing game than we've seen under Southgate. The old Gegenpress that he adopted from Jurgen Klopp at Dortmund. But then what he did at Dortmund when Klopp left was they were also in possession very relaxed. So they almost rest when they've got the ball, and then you lose the ball, go and win it back, lads. So that's what I want to see at Wembley.
So, Dino, that's the setup and how he might set up going forward as England manager, but people want to know about the personnel. And in terms of the next question that people want to know is the number 10 position. Is it going to be important in a Thomas Tuchel setup, and who will it be?
Yeah, and as I alluded to in that first section there, the 10 position is what Tuchel looks at in his squad and how he's going to get the best out of his 10. So, you know, at Dortmund, we had Ilkay Gundogan in that side, you know, and how he got the best out of him. At Bayern, it was Musiala. At PSG, it was Neymar. So with England, it's Jude Bellingham, right? We have to, England, Thomas Tuchel has to get the best out of Jude Bellingham. You know, he is the talisman. We know we're going to get goals from Kane if they give him the ball. We've got lots of options in wide areas. I mean, we haven't even mentioned Bukayo Saka, not in this squad, in that wide area. You know, we could end up with Ethan Nwaneri in a later date. You know, we've got players in the left-hand side position that can rotate. But, you know, how do we get the best out of these positions here with the number 10s playing off of Harry Kane? Because in a Gareth Southgate formation, what ended up happening a lot of times is we ended up in this sort of congested area right in here where the wingers aren't holding their width. We had a midfielder, be it Declan Rice, or if Declan Rice is pushed forward, a backing up play. Then England get lots of the ball, so we end up with full-backs or defenders pushing up here, and we end up in this horrible, congested area where not even those best players can work in those tight areas, okay? So what Tuchel will want to see is width from the wingers straight away. You can see the spaces opened up for those number 10s, okay? This is where he wants the forwards to operate. In these areas here, playing off the number 9 and rotating with the wingers. So on one side, Kane had come across and you're working as a trio here. We could rotate between these players. We can have an overlap, we can have an underlap, and then we've got lots of space created. Ball comes to the other side, same thing this side, okay? So Kane is obviously the key. He will not want Harry Kane back here picking the ball up. He will want Harry Kane occupying central defenders and making sure that the number 10s can play off him. So I want to see Jude Bellingham in an attacking left position. I want to see Phil Foden and eventually Cole Palmer in an attacking inside right position, so that we've got 2 10s consistently playing off the striker and using those wide players. So yeah, absolutely. Tuchel in training this week and coming into those first couple of games will be trying to figure out with these players how he gets the best out of the players who are the first names on the team sheet. Jude Bellingham being one of them.
It reminds me of Germany during the Euros with Wirtz and Musiala as those two number 10s behind Kai Havertz. Is that how it's going to set up for England?
Absolutely, I think that's right. These two positions here, it almost didn't matter for Germany who the 9 was, and they rotated that 9 through the tournament. But what you saw is you want your ballers, you want your ball players on the ball in these areas, in these pockets around the edge of the area. And he'll do everything. And as I say, whether that's a 3 at the back, which means then he's got width from fullbacks and they go up and down this line, or it's 4 at the back where one inverts and comes into midfield, freeing up another midfielder. That all the setup is to get 5 attacking players into positions where they can work together. So, yeah, look, I'm excited again.
To allow those number 10s to work, you need the foundational pieces. You believe that one of the fullbacks will come and invert next to Declan Rice. Will it definitely be Declan Rice in that position? Because we saw him struggle in the Euros, playing that kind of, not sole number 8 or number 6 position, but the man who has to pick up the ball from the defenders.
Yeah, I mean, I was a little surprised not to see Angel Gomez in the squad because, that sort of midfielder who makes it tick. And at Dortmund, they had Julian Weigl in there, who was a, great little touch player, ball player. Chelsea had Jorginho, so he likes that sort of link player. It could be that we end up in a setup where Declan Rice is one of the 2 midfield players and he doesn't play Foden and Bellingham. I mean, Jordan Henderson's in this squad. I mean, are you picking Jordan Henderson in the squad and not play him? It feels like an odd thing to do.
Do you think he's got a chance to break into the starting 11?
I think over the 2 games, it would be strange to pick a player like Jordan Henderson and not use him at all. So there's that essence. But I would also say that, for me, the best attacking midfield player in the Premier League in the last couple of months is Morgan Rogers. So we could end up in a position where you've got Morgan Rogers, who does this for Villa, coming from a deeper position, and then when they go into an attacking shape, Declan Rice holds, Morgan Rogers and Jude Bellingham become the 2 10s, and then, as I say, you could have Reece James coming in to invert. You could have both against lesser opposition, no disrespect to Latvia and Albania. You could end up with a Lewis Skelly position, a Declan Rice position and a Reece James position with 2 defenders behind that. And that gives you a 2-3-5 attacking shape, a bit more attacking than a 3-2-5 attacking shape. But yeah, Rice will play. It's just dependent on whether Rice is the holder or whether Rice is freed up like he is at Arsenal a little bit.
Barring Harry Kane, who we expect to stay up front and be in the box and be that front man for Thomas Tuchel, of course, he knows him very well. Is he expecting his players to be multifunctional in terms of their roles within this team?
Yeah, very much so. And that's where I like the Bowen selection and I like the Anthony Gordon or Marcus Rashford selection as well, because those players like to come off their wings. So Tuchel at Dortmund particularly, which was, I think it gets forgotten just how good that Dortmund team were. They were fabulous to watch, with Aubameyang up front and Mkhitaryan, and then they had Kagawa, they had Gundogan. They're a real quality team. But what that team did, Mkhitaryan scored loads of goals from this right-hand side position because they rotated those players. They moved in that position. So that's where, if it works out this way for Tuchel, I don't really see a wing-back type formation, because you end up, if that happens, you end up with a right-back in a striker position, which you don't really want. Whereas if you're playing this setup with 5 more attacking players, you end up with Jared Bowen bursting off, Harry Kane dropping in to play those little passes, and either Rodgers or Bellingham on Foden running into the gap to score goals. That's where he'll want the attacking players.
Wheels of chaos. This is apparently your phrase.
Yeah, my phrase of wheels of chaos.
We see it at Spurs.
Musical chairs, we called it at one stage as well, where those players move in between those positions, but they're all equally comfortable in a wide, a central or an attacking position, which is where you want your Bellingham, Fodens, Kanes and Bowens to be.
So, Dino, we've talked about established stars, the likes of Kane and Bellingham and Declan Rice, but which future stars do you think will shine for Thomas Tuchel in this England team?
Yeah, there's a little bit of a feeling around the camp that the under-21s team is as good as the first team at the moment, and maybe they have a game in training this week and fight that one out. But there are some players that I'm surprised aren't in the team, in the squad anyway. And then I mentioned Jordan Henderson there. Obviously, I'm surprised he is in it, but experienced player around the camp. But I also think Ethan Nwaneri has been an absolute revelation at Arsenal in the absence of Saka, and obviously Saka's not in this team either. Mars Lewis-Skelly did get in the squad, but I'm also a bit surprised we don't see Adam Wharton in this. And for the reasons that I mentioned, where at Dortmund, at Chelsea, at PSG, he relied on a ball player in midfield who is going to link play, little touches. And as you quite rightly said, that's not necessarily Declan Rice's game, linking that play. So if we get to a setup, as I always say about that 5-man attacking setup, this player here is the one that wants to go and receive the ball off fullbacks, off defenders, drift into these areas and link play here. So the ball comes back off a 10, goes out to a winger, comes in off Kane, goes into a 10. That link player that comes in, I'd really like very soon to see Adam Wharton in that setup. And also, as I say, when we talk about these rotations out wide with this triangle outside, at Arsenal, that's Havertz, Nwaneri or Saka and Odegaard. So I'd love to see Ethan Nwaneri in there with those little rotations as well. So there are players who can move into this setup. But I also understand that Tuchel needs to get to know some of those experienced players first. We've got a World Cup on the horizon, assuming we qualify, which I'm sure we will.
That's a safe assumption.
Yeah, it's a pretty safe assumption with the players that we've got. But he also needs to figure out where some players might not fit into that system. So if he does see in this Dan Burn playing as a left centre-back or a left-back, and he doesn't feel like the interchange from defence to midfield doesn't really work in that way. You know, if a full-back comes in and we end up in that shape again, and he doesn't quite like how that works with Dan Burn or Levi Colwill or Mark Gahey, then he knows that in his mind going forward that he changes around. But yeah, in the future, absolutely love to see Adam Wharton in this setup and absolutely love to see Ethan Nwaneri in it as well.
More on Adam Wharton. I absolutely love a player who cuts his teeth in the Championship, who's brilliant for Blackburn, and had a slow start to the season at Crystal Palace, but he's really finding his feet now in that Glasner system. I don't really see a tempo setter for England. And when Adam Wharton's done that for Crystal Palace, he's really looked the part. Do you think Thomas Tuchel will eventually call him up when he kind of gets a better feel of his squad?
Yeah, I think when Lee Carsley was in charge and we saw straight away Angel Gomez come in there for that precise reason of linking them, gluing those players together. And, what we may see a surprise. We may see someone like Foden or Bellingham play in a deeper position against lesser opposition to do that job entirely. I'm not quite sure that will happen, but yeah, I do think that's where they've got to go searching England for the right setup so that and then you'll put that player in there. As I say, at the moment, he'll be focusing on getting the best out of the players he's got. And then if he looks at it and thinks, yeah, we don't have the tempo setter or we don't have the link player, then look, there's a few more available. But yeah, look, it's England, it's exciting. They're, and no doubt if they don't score 3 in the first 20 minutes, everyone will be criticising them straight away.
That comes with the job, doesn't it, and the territory of being England manager. On Mars Lewis-Skelly, of course, he's a man that's made the headlines for multiple reasons this season. A very good player. Coming through at Arsenal, he was a centre midfielder, like a lot of these players who break into the first 11 are. He's a player that is multifaceted, can do different things in the starting 11. Do you think in this Thomas Tuchel system he'll be primarily used as a left-back, or do you think we'll see him in the centre of the pitch a lot more than we've seen him at Arsenal? I
think if he plays him, it will be in order to do this. It will be in order to move him into an inverted position if he plays him, because that's where then you can free another midfielder up to join that attacking 5. But, if he decides that it's Tino Livramento as a more natural left-back, as he showed in the cup final, or if he decides it's a left-footed centre-back there, because England aren't exactly blessed with options at left-back at the moment with no Chilwell, no Shaw, the players we've had there before. God, I only wish we still had an Ashley Cole, hey?
No Lewis Hall?
Yeah, no Lewis Hall, absolutely right. He's injured as well. So, yeah, we're in that position where if we haven't got a more natural left-back, maybe it's a left centre-back who plays there, so the inversion comes from the right-hand side. But Lewis-Skelly could do that as well. He could play right-back and end up in centre midfield, and what an option to have a player who's played fantastically well in the Premier League, is both-footed, can play both sides and can play in defence or midfield. So, who wouldn't want that as a manager?
Really quickly on his Arsenal teammate, Ethan Nwaneri didn't make the senior squad, but a player's got so much talent. We see it on the club stage. Do you think when he eventually does break into this England side, he'll be utilised on out wide or as a number 10 like we assume that is his best position?
Well, I think it's going to be a really good test for Mikel Arteta to work out how he gets Bukayo Saka and Ethan Nwaneri in the same team first, and then maybe Thomas Tuchel will copy that in the next international break. Maybe we'll see Saka on the left and Nwaneri on the right, and that'd be exciting as well.